Hi, it's great to be here. So once again, I'm Warren Wu. I'm in charge of Fortinet's global cloud security products and solutions. And Fortinet, we're very excited to be a gold security sponsor here at the AWS Summit in Singapore. So today, what I'm going to talk about are some key best practices for securing your cloud adoption journey, especially as many of you may be making your initial migration to AWS. So let's first look at some cloud adoption trends. One thing's for certain, globally cloud adoption is accelerating. We see many organizations making their initial migration to AWS, as well as more and more going all in on the public cloud. So key analysts like IDC are in fact projecting very aggressively that maybe more than half the workloads will have migrated from on-premise to the public cloud by 2018, which is this year. Now, whether that actually happens this year or not, it's certainly happening very quickly. With that also comes a lot of spending on the cloud infrastructure from AWS, as well as complementary solutions and services for management, security, et cetera, from the ecosystem. And that's very critical because we still see in a lot of surveys that security and privacy still remain some of the top concerns when it comes to making that cloud migration. Okay. Now, when we look at how to secure the cloud, first we need to understand why organizations are moving to cloud computing. And really, this is very critical because we hear a lot of talk about things like IT efficiency, CapEx to OpEx, cost savings, and they are good reasons for moving to the cloud. But overwhelmingly, though, when we look at every stage of the cloud journey, the top benefits or the top priorities are actually really more about accelerating the business. In other words, it's all about digital transformation. So in fact, we see that the top reasons really have to do with more of faster access to infrastructure for your developer applications, greater ability once they're up and running to scale and to maintain availability. So all of this, again, is for that accelerated pace of business. So then the critical thing with security then is how do we address privacy compliance at the same scale and speed of the cloud so that we're protecting digital business, but in a way that doesn't slow down this digital transformation. So we like to talk about security transformation. So if digital transformation is about the integration of digital technology into all areas of your business, then security transformation is the integration of security into all of that digital technology and doing it in a way that's both scalable and transparent that can be continuously improving and assessing your security posture. So what is the fundamental challenge with cloud security? Well, it's really a matter of complexity. So in the good old days, we had most of your server and other applications running in one or a set of on-premise data centers that were fully owned by your own internal IT. And all this may be accessed through a single access provider, and you can put a lot of firewall or other inline security with it. But now as we go through the cloud era, a lot of your data centers themselves are transforming into private clouds. Then you're migrating a lot of those workloads into AWS and the public cloud, as well as you may have other applications or data moving into SaaS applications like, say, Office 365. And you may also further be leveraging some of your trusted service providers like, say, Singtel or StarHub here in Singapore. So all of this creates a multi-environment across many physical locations. The way that those are being accessed becomes more complex, especially with a lot of the innovations at the new edge. So things like direct connects from your access provider may connect your offices and campuses directly to the public cloud, as well as things like SD-WAN, which also may further create additional paths from your users to SaaS and other applications. So we can see that getting visibility and control of this broader surface becomes much, much more complex than when it was just a single set of data centers. So the first thing we need to understand about security in the cloud is that it's a shared responsibility. So hopefully all of you have heard of the concept of the shared security model or shared responsibility model. It's a concept that's espoused not only by AWS, but also by most security vendors, as well as leading industry organizations like the Cloud Security Alliance. And what it means is that when you have a public provider like AWS providing key layers of your infrastructure, like your compute, networking, and storage, the service provider is responsible for securing the layers that they provide, so providing the physical security so that no one can access the hardware and the infrastructure, providing a lot of the lockdown of the hypervisors and the compute and that infrastructure that they're providing. However, you as the end customer or the tenant are still responsible for securing the workloads that you bring over to the cloud. So providing security for your EC2 instances, for the operating system security and the application security that's running within that instance. Also providing some of the basic network security and access, such as Firewall, to those workloads. Now, it doesn't mean that someone like AWS isn't providing some great tools like security groups or VPCs that can assist with some of that segmentation, but it's up to you as the tenant or the user to leverage those capabilities and configure them properly to provide the right security configuration and security posture for your workloads. So there's still a lot of responsibility that falls onto you together with your cloud provider. So let me talk about three key best practices as we look at that migration to the cloud. And I'm going to talk about it in terms of three S's. And the first S stands for scale. We need to scale protection, particularly for elastic cloud workloads. So once again, if the key goal of cloud computing is for accelerating the business, it turns out a lot of these applications are things like web or social applications to more quickly connect with end users, customers, patients, et cetera. And a lot of that activity may grow very quickly and virally with user demand. So you may have a lot of workload traffic increasing very quickly. So what you want to do is be able to, of course, maintain security and privacy and not lose the trust of these users. But you need to do it in a way that automatically scales that protection and the capacity to keep up with that greatly varying user demand as it scales up and down. You want to be able to automatically provision security and protection to new instances and new workloads as they spin up very quickly and automatically orchestrate the right security and inspection with these workloads as they spin up. And the second S then stands for segment. So we want to be able to segment all our traffic both across clouds as well as within each cloud. So we want to do end-to-end segmentation. Certainly, as we're making that migration of workloads from across the hybrid cloud from on-premise to the public cloud, we want to make sure that we're properly securing that traffic, perhaps with a VPN as it migrates across, but also inspecting that traffic to make sure that the right data is moving or not to the public cloud. So in many cases, organizations want to keep more of the secure data on premise and make sure that sensitive information doesn't move across to the public cloud. In some other instances I've seen, actually some of the sensitive data is actually residing in the public cloud, such as PCI or credit card or transaction data, and they don't want that to migrate on-premise because that would increase the scope of audit subject to PCI compliance. So regardless of which way it's going, you want to make sure that you're inspecting and making sure the right data is in the right cloud. Then secondly, within each cloud, we want to make sure that we're properly segmenting workloads within the private cloud, and then very importantly, within the public cloud within AWS, because as we migrate more and more applications to the public cloud, we don't want them all to be in a single flat network where if one server or workload were to be compromised, that a hacker could use that to now gain access to all of your servers and data. So we want to make sure that we're properly segmenting different workloads within the public cloud environment so that we only allow legitimate traffic to be moving laterally within that environment. The diagram shows one typical example of how to do this. It's called the transit VPC scenario, but it basically forces all lateral traffic within your AWS environment to go through another VPC that includes your firewalls or network security, so that all of your lateral traffic is inspected as it's trying to move across. That way we can allow the good traffic to move, but block any or detect any bad traffic. And we want to do this not just with sort of basic layer 2, 3 type of firewalling, but do this based very fine grain on things like users, applications, and data. In other words, we want to do it at a layer 7 level, where we are really properly letting only the right traffic move across. And when you do that heavy layer 7 inspection, it's a lot more compute intensive, so you need a lot more increased security capacity and throughput to handle all of that so-called east-west traffic. And finally, the third S stands for single pane of glass for your visibility and control. So as we migrate workloads to the public cloud, we still, in most cases, are maintaining an on-premise data center or private cloud. And we want to be able to ensure that we have a single pane of glass for our policies and our security events as they're coming in across both the private and the public, across that entire hybrid cloud, so that we can understand everything from as a single security posture. And ideally, we like to have consistent security rules and policies across this entire hybrid cloud. So it shouldn't matter what rules are applied to a certain workload, depending on whether it's in the private or the public cloud. It shouldn't really matter. So that way, if you're doing that migration, you know that that workload has the same security posture both before and after the fact. So to kind of summarize the 3 S's, it's scale, segment, and single pane of glass. So at Fortinet, we really look at cloud security. We like to talk about something called a security fabric, where all of your different security, from firewalls to web security, mail security, et cetera, are all integrated together and talking to each other in kind of a fabric approach. And it's very important to extend this concept from the on-premise environment to the public cloud to cover that entire attack surface across private, public, and even SaaS clouds as well. So our approach really starts with your core network security, which usually starts with the firewall. So our flagship FortiGate next generation firewall, traditionally on-premise, most people will purchase that as a hardware appliance. But as we bring that over to AWS, we basically package it as a virtual machine or virtual appliance. In other words, we take that same FortiOS firmware and we run it in an EC2 instance of varying sizes, from M3 mediums all the way to C4 2XLs and even C5s coming soon. So you have different sizes and capacities in a virtual form factor. It gets all the same FortiGuard threat updates, such as IPS signatures, anti-malware updates, application visibility updates on a daily basis, the same as you would have in a physical appliance on-premise. Our solution is AWS. It's a security competency validated solution, so meets the AWS best practices. And in the marketplace, you can buy both in a traditional perpetual or bring your own license, or for many of those elastic use cases, you can get a firewall as an on-demand instance by the hour or annual, et cetera. We support a lot of cloud-native orchestration with CloudFormation templates, CloudWatch events, Lambda functions, et cetera, so that we can provide that automatic scaling and segmentation, as I talked about. And also, we provide a lot of integration between the FortiGate firewall and the other Fortinet solutions. So what are those other Fortinet security fabric solutions? So in fact, with Fortinet, if you go to the marketplace, you will find not just one security product, but you'll find a whole fabric full of security products that all talk to each other and work together. Again, it starts with the enterprise next generation firewall, but then we also provide web application firewalling, the FortiWeb, to protect your web application content. These are the attacks that might occur against your custom applications, such as cross-site scripting, SQL injections, and other OWASP top 10 web application threats. We have mail security. We have sandboxing, SIMs, which are security information and event management analytics. All of them are available and integrate together, so you can have a full security fabric within the AWS environment. With many of these, again, available as both bring your own license or as a pay-as-you-go pricing model. I won't talk about all of them in detail, but to kind of start to wrap up here, one of the most exciting ones that we just announced in Q4 was really the first enterprise-grade advanced threat detection for your AWS environment. This is with the FortiSandbox. So for those who may not be in security, sandboxing solutions allow you to take an unknown file that may be coming across your network and put it through additional inspection and behavioral analysis within a contained environment to detect whether it might be an unknown or new or targeted threat against your particular organization. So our FortiSandbox, again, in this concept of the fabric, it can take unknown files from your FortiGate firewall. It can take unknown files from your web application firewall or your mail security. All of these may be entirely running within AWS and allows you to detect those unknown and advanced threats that might be targeting your users and your workloads. Yeah. So let's kind of wrap this up with a few customer case studies to kind of illustrate how these go. The first one is very close to the Asia-Pacific region. It's icare, which is actually one of the largest insurance providers in Australia. They cover over 3 million employees in Sydney and that area of New South Wales. So icare, what they wanted to do was they were basically wanting to migrate a lot of their legacy systems and processes that were running on-premise and migrate them to the public cloud and gain a lot of agility and elasticity going forward. They also, at the same time, wanted to ensure the highest levels of cybersecurity available. So they chose Fortinet with the FortiGate firewall and professional services. And now this is a great case study to kind of illustrate some of the key priorities you might have on day one versus your day 365, both for your migration to AWS as well as for your security. So in the day one effort, they wanted to rapidly migrate within a span of 5 weeks a lot of their on-premise workloads over to AWS, but at the same time they wanted to make sure that the protection of those workloads was seamless as they moved across. So Fortinet's professional services worked together with AWS, along with some trusted consulting partners that were assisting in the migration, all to make sure that everything was moved over without any interruption and that the protection was seamless as well. So all this happened very quickly and ambitiously over a period of 5 weeks to get that basic security protection in place. Now, once that all went successfully, then they could then focus on the next stage with their day 365, which is now focused more on providing more, leveraging more of the AWS capabilities for automatically scaling with increased transaction volumes, they're delivering higher service and availability of new applications, et cetera. So they wanted to use a lot of auto-scaling and a lot of self-service automation. This is, again, for the workloads themselves, but now also applying that to their security as well. And then so for the day 365, they can now take that basic firewall posture and now add some of the CloudFormation scripts and other templates that Fortinet provides out of the box. So the great thing is you can use these as they are, so we provide them pre-built for a lot of the most common use cases, but if it doesn't exactly fit your exact need, you can download our scripts on GitHub and then customize them to whatever particular use case you want to. So it gives you the flexibility of either deploying them very quickly with pre-built templates or to customize them and do that as an advanced phase 2 or day 365 project over time. And the next case study is Steelcase. Steelcase is one of the major office furniture manufacturers in the US. And here, Steelcase, they wanted to really focus on the hybrid cloud situation to be able to provide the same security posture for their persistent on-premise environment as well as their public AWS environment as well. And they chose to do this with a full fabric approach. So they not only leverage physical FortiGates on-premise, and again, the virtual FortiGates for AWS, but they also purchased our web security, our mail security, as well as some of our wireless access security for on-premise, and stitched all these together in a full security fabric. So they did this across on-premise and across the AWS environment, and this allowed them to really have a seamless protection across that entire hybrid cloud surface. So just to wrap up then, how AWS and Fortinet are working together to secure a digital business in the cloud. Think of course, AWS as enabling that cloud journey for your digital transformation. But think of Fortinet working alongside that, the Fortinet Security Fabric. It provides a single pane of glass for security across multiple clouds, from private to public, hybrid cloud, and even SaaS, providing multiple integrations with native orchestration in the AWS environment, and providing multiple security applications that communicate in a single seamless fabric from firewall, web, mail, sandboxing, and other security, all working together fully within the AWS environment. So thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, please come to our gold sponsor booth in the expo area, and we'd love to talk with you further and answer any questions. So thank you very much.